And welcome into CBS Sports HQ, getting you ready for Week 16 in the NFL. I'm Amanda Guerra along with Pete Prisco. Brady Quinn also joining us. This is we're going to go through every game, get their picks. We'll see if Pete does well this week. You said Brady did okay.
Well, Brady always beats me. Just ask him.
He's just going to give a shrug. All right. No, let's jump into Christmas Day, guys. Vikings at Saints on your Christmas Day. You've eaten, you've opened up your presents, 4:30 Eastern. Brady, earlier in the week, you said Drew Brees did look rusty his first game back. Maybe not quite 100% here. So, Pete, we'll start with you here. The Saints are favored by 7. The over-under is 51. What's your play?
Brady's right. He did look rusty. And with a guy with bad ribs, coming off the injury, broken ribs, lung injury, you're going to look rusty. You're going to eye level's going to come down. You have big grown men trying to knock you out and hit you in that rib area. Of course you're going to be rusty. But as the game moved along, he looked much better. He looked much more comfortable. He threw the ball well. He got him within 3 late in the game. And I think this is going to be a spot for him against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Remember, they beat him last year in the playoffs. I think they're going to make amends for that. And I think Drew Brees is going to play well against the so-so Vikings defense. I like the Saints minus the points.
Pete, I'm with you on this one. I hate to start off the show agreeing. However, he did start to look better and find that rhythm later on in the game. And so that's one key focal point. The other thing is, I don't imagine Cam Jordan is going to miss more time in this game. Remember, he had that punch in the game. They had to go about half the game without him. This defense, to me, is going to be able to put pressure on Kirk Cousins, force turnovers. The biggest question is whether or not they can stop Dalvin Cook. All that being said, though, the Minnesota Vikings defense, what about last week? Giving up a game to Mitchell Trubisky. They almost gave up 400 total yards of offense. They allowed 50% conversion rate on third down. This Vikings defense hasn't played up to par this year. I think they're going to struggle with a better version of Drew Brees this week in that offensive attack for the Saints. So I'm also going to take New Orleans, and I'll lay the points.
Pete, there is a lot of talk still all season about the Saints possibly being a Super Bowl contender. Do you still feel that way with Drew Brees coming back a little bit more slowly than we thought?
Yeah, I still think they're a contender. The defense is that good. They can really shut down the opposition. They haven't played as well lately, though, and that has to be concerning from the defensive side of the ball. But if Drew Brees gets back in there, they get Michael Thomas back for the playoffs, that's going to be a much better offense. So, yeah, they're still a contender.
I always thought the same thing about the Steelers. We'll see how we feel later on in the show. All right, let's go on to the next, or we're going to go to Saturday, Bucs at Lions. The biggest news right now, the Lions don't have any idea who's really going to be coaching on Saturday. The team announced that they did have some positive COVID tests this week. Now reports it could be almost all of the defensive staff members contact trace, possibly their interim head coach. But Pete, does it even matter in this game? They're taking on the Bucs. Bucs 9.5-point favorite here. The over-under is 54.
Can that defense get any worse? No. Of course it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. They have all kinds of strife on that coaching staff. You saw the special teams coach went rogue last week. He got fired. It's just not a good situation. It doesn't matter. Their defense has been so bad. Offensively, Matt Stafford's still there. He's playing through some real painful stuff going on in his rib area. He's a tough guy. That's a good thing. He can control the offense, but it doesn't matter from a defensive standpoint. And I think the Bucs are getting back on track. I think coming out of their bye, they looked much better offensively. Tom Brady looked good against Atlanta last week in rallying them. They were a little lifeless to start that game. But I think this is a spot when you play that Lions defense, you're going to be able to score a lot of points. Tom Brady and the offense will do that. I'll take the Bucs in this game.
Interesting, Pete, because that's not what we have down on our notes, but I'm on the other side of this one. And I think if we learned anything this past week, it's that we shouldn't necessarily throw in the towel on teams that, we look at and say have no chance at this point in time in the season. Look at Monday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals with a third-string quarterback and Ryan Finley literally handling the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, yes, were on a 2-game losing streak, but it's not like the Tampa Bay Bucs were that far from dropping a game versus a 4-win team in the Atlanta Falcons last week. They struggled to get off to a fast start. This defense is not what we thought it was earlier in the year. I actually like the Detroit Lions keeping this game close, maybe even a little bit of a backdoor cover by Matt Stafford and this Lions offense to keep this one. So I'm done. Go ahead and taking the favorites when we see some of these bigger lines. I'm actually going to go with the Lions here, even though I do think Tampa Bay wins the game.
All right, let's go on to 49ers Cardinals also Saturday. The 49ers potentially Playing with George Kittle, I'm not entirely sure why. Meanwhile, the Cardinals could potentially clinch a postseason berth for the first time in 5 years. If they win, they also need the Bears to lose. By the way, the Bears are playing the Jags. We'll get to that in a little bit. So the Cardinals are favored by 5 here. The over-under 48.5. Brady, what's your play in this game?
Well, I'm going with the Cardinals here. They obviously have more at stake, and I think they're in a better position right now and still playing better football. So that's the easy side of this equation. I think the interesting story of this game would be Josh Rosen, who has finally decided to jump ship there in Tampa and now come over to the San Francisco 49ers with a potential 2-game tryout, if you will, for potentially being there for the future. But the crazy part about it all is he goes back to the place where it all started. Yes, this is a road game for San Francisco, but San Francisco is based in Arizona, so they'll be playing at the team that initially drafted him in the top 10 in the draft a few years ago, and then he'll actually be hosting the Seattle Seahawks in this very same stadium potentially if he's going to be the starting quarterback moving forward. So Arizona should be able to cover this number. What Kyle Shanahan's done with this team that's been riddled with injuries has been fantastic this year, but the bottom line is the more interesting storyline to me is if Josh Rosen goes in there and starts for the 49ers, what can Kyle Shanahan make of him? He's had one of the toughest journeys along the entire, of any first-round quarterback drafted, given the Arizona, Miami, and everything else. Now there's actually an opportunity for him to be with a good team, good organization for a couple of games, even as injured as they are, to potentially do something in this game. But obviously I like Arizona.
See, I think C.J. Beathard is going to start a quarterback, and if he does, are they any better than they were with Nick Mullins? No, and Nick Mullins had real struggles throwing the football, and that's a problem. So they're going to have struggle here. Even though Arizona didn't look that great defensively last week, Jalen Hurts did some really good things against them. Patrick Peterson had a rough go of it last week. He was called for a bunch of penalties and got beat a bunch of times. So they got to pick it up on that side of the ball. But I think offensively, I think the Cardinals will be able to move the football in this game, and I just think all those injuries are starting to catch up with the 49ers. It's a season like none other. Let's be real. This is the all-time Super Bowl hangover of hangovers. Injuries, COVID, stars out, move your team to Arizona and practice down there and play down there for home games. It's been like none other, and they are just ready to get it over with, so I think Arizona wins the game and covers the number.
You think the 49ers can bounce back well next season?
Yes, but who's going to be quarterback? Will it be Jimmy Garoppolo? Will it be Sam Darnold? Who will be? That would be a good fit. Sam Darnold to the 49ers if the Jets give up on Sam Darnold, and they might not now.
I feel like you need a crystal ball and one of those little hats. It's going to be a segment. I'm going to make it one. All right, the last game on Saturday, we have Dolphins at Raiders that evening. Now, if the Raiders lose, they will officially be eliminated from the postseason. Initially, this opened with the Raiders as a favorite. That has now moved in favor of the Dolphins by 3. The over-under here, 47.5. Pete, what do you like in this game?
I think this is a spot for Tua in the passing game to get going. They've not been very good. His weapons have been hurt. They were hurt last week. Some of those guys could be back this week or should be back this week. And the Raiders are terrible on defense. I mean, they are absolutely awful, which is why Paul Gunther, the defensive coordinator, got fired. They put Rod Marinelli in, and what were they last week? They were awful again. It doesn't matter who calls the defense. They don't have enough talent. Tua needs to show people he can throw the football better than he's thrown it so far. I think this is an opportunity for that. And on the other side, we don't know who's playing quarterback. It will be Derek Carr. He says he's going to try and give it a go. He hopes to give it a go. Brady would know better than me, but a groin injury, that'll be something tough to come through if you're a quarterback, if you can't move around. So no matter who plays quarterback, if it's Derek Carr or now the guy that everybody thinks can be a starter again in the NFL off of one half of football, Marcus Mariota, I don't think they win the game. I like the Dolphins.
I got to be honest with you. After watching Marcus Mariota last week, I think if he starts this game, he's more of an issue for Brian Flores' defense, this Miami defense, because with that running ability, he limits what you can do. And if Derek Carr was to play, look, he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be quite as mobile, so he might be a sitting duck back there. I think if I'm the Raiders, I'd rather have a healthy Marcus Mariota over a banged-up Derek Carr. But, Pete, you touched on something, Tua Tagovailoa, and this being a great opportunity for him in the passing game. In part two, because this Raiders defense has a hard time getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They're one of the worst in the league. So, due to that, even if he doesn't have as much help out around him, I still think he'll be productive in the passing game as well as their rushing attack. But to me, the Miami Dolphins are just a better football team right now. And if you're going to go ahead and let me lay 3 points, I'll gladly do that. I think at worst here, you push with them winning by a field goal. But I like the Dolphins' chances.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a game for Tua to throw the football around and show people that this can be a good playoff team. If he can't pass it better than he's thrown it so far, and they do make the playoffs, you know what that would be? one and done.
By the way, if the Dolphins win, that's going to be their first winning season and their first 10-win season since 2016. So they're hoping for that. All right, guys, let's recap your picks really quickly. I did believe initially that you guys were going to be agreeing on everything. Pete decided to go a little askew there.
Well, that line changed a little bit,
there
too.
You go.
So, did it? Did it change a little bit, Pete?
That's it.
Yeah. You know why? Because there was, like you said, that 1 week, there was a lot of action on one side and it moved the number. The big bettors.
Oh, I see.
There you go. That's what happened, according to Pete Prisco. And welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Amanda Guerra here, Brady Quinn, also Pete Prisco. We are going through all your picks for Week 16, and we're going to jump into this one. It is a very interesting game. Colts at Steelers. The Steelers have made their life very difficult. They have now dropped 3 in a row. I don't know where y'all's confidence levels are. However, they can still lock up the AFC North if they win or the Browns lose. Now, the Colts are a 1.5-point favorite as of right now. The over-under is 45. By the way, Juju Smith-Schuster announced today he will no longer be dancing on logos. We'll see if that actually happens. Brady, I'm going to start with you here because I think Pete's take is very interesting. So, Brady, go ahead.
Yeah, so at this point in time in the season, to me, it's all about trends. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are just playing bad football. They came out in a national spot versus a bad football team and didn't provide any energy, any juice, any enthusiasm. I mean, you would have thought that the Bengals were the team that were still contending for an AFC North Division title. The way the Pittsburgh Steelers came out, absolutely flat. I was shocked, to be quite honest with you. So the hard thing is, for the Steelers, there's no quick fix. Bud Dupree's not coming back. Devin Bush is not coming back on defense. And so they've got to deal with some of those changes and now some of the weaknesses that we're seeing from that defense. But offensively, Pete, I've mentioned this all year long. Their offensive line, they've typically played as one of a top 5 offensive line over the previous years. This year, they're average at best. They can't protect for very long. That's why you don't see quite as much downfield passing game. It's short, dink and dunk. Get the ball to Ben's hand quick. We now see teams are just sitting back.
Half, they showed some life. They will win this game. Take that all the way to the bank. That's a lock of the week.
I'll be texting you over the weekend. We'll
I know
talk
you
about
will.
this.
I know you will.
Are you going to pull a Ryan Wilson and put a tattoo?
No tattoos.
No tattoos. No tattoo bets. We'll see. All right, let's go into the next one. Giants at Ravens. The Ravens an 11-point favorite here. The over-under is 45. Now, according to our models, the Ravens still have about a 75% chance of making the playoffs. Pete, what's your play in this game?
You know, the Ravens might run the table, and I think they will run the table to get to 11-5 and still might not make the playoffs. But I think it'll work out to their advantage, and they're starting to play better. We're starting to see the Ravens offense that we thought we'd see before the season. They're getting guys back healthy. Lamar Jackson's throwing the football better. And I think this is a great spot for the Ravens to get everything right. Defensively, they still have some issues. They've struggled on defense, which is a surprise. But against the Giants offense, no matter who plays quarterback, that's not an issue. So I think the Ravens get back on track here on both sides of the ball. They blow out the Giants.
It's a big number, and I think, if I would have known what's going to happen with Daniel Jones at this point in time in the week, I might say, all right, I think the Giants can cover this number. Unfortunately, not knowing at this point, I feel safer being on the side of the Baltimore Ravens. And let's not forget, too, Joe Judge, he may on 4th down just want to run one of the worst fake field goals we've ever seen and try to throw to an offensive lineman in the end zone with his punter, as opposed to actually just running a 4th down play and you keeping his offense out there. So there's always that wild card we could throw into this one if they just want to start experimenting with some more special teams fakes. But the reality is this, as Pete touched on, this offense, Lamar Jackson, they've started to find their rhythm the past few weeks. I think they'll continue to find it here. I don't think they'll have any problems with the Giants defense. The biggest question is that Baltimore Ravens defense. Are they going to be able to apply and put the kind of pressure that they're going to need to be able to cover this massive spread? I do think they'll be able to in this case. Andrew Thomas, it looked like he was developing for a second. I think it took a step maybe last week. So this is going to be a big challenge for him as well. I like Baltimore. I'll lay 11 points.
Pete, really quickly, Lamar Jackson, reigning NFL MVP, huge hype around him going into the season. Just kind of evaluate what you've seen from him.
Yeah, it hadn't been as good. And I thought he would take strides and make big strides as a passer. It hadn't happened. Now, he doesn't have a lot of great weapons around him. Marquise Brown hasn't developed, in large part because they haven't developed as a group. And teams are playing him differently. You notice that on 3rd down. There are different teams against him now, and he's got to fit balls into tight windows, and he hadn't done it. I do think he'll eventually get it worked out, maybe next season. But the next 2 games, this is an opportunity for him to show people, look, if we get in, we're dangerous. Nobody wants them in the playoffs. I can tell you that right now. Nobody.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Falcons at Chiefs. Now, the biggest thing here is for the Chiefs. They can lock up that #1 seed in the AFC if they win. Go ahead. Don't pull the Steelers. Make it easy on yourself. They are double-digit favorites here, 10.5 points in favor of the Chiefs. The over-under is 54. Brady Quinn, what do you like in this game?
Well, I like the Chiefs winning the game, but I don't think they're going to cover that massive spread. I think they could have had an opportunity to last week, but kind of took their foot off the accelerator there in the second half, allowed New Orleans to get back in that football game and make it a lot closer than the game actually was. So I like Atlanta to cover this number. I think there's one thing we know, they haven't given up, especially considering the way they jumped out to a lead last week versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, who will be a playoff team. So Matt Ryan and his crew, they've still got something to prove. Raheem Morris thinks he's got a good shot at the head coaching position there at Atlanta, moving on for the future. So they'll dial in some different looks, try to put some pressure on Patrick Mahomes. I think the biggest key is if they can take away Travis Kelce. If you take away Kelce, you can limit somewhat of this offense. Le'Veon Bell pitched in last week along with Damian Williams. They'll have to now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out for the regular season. But in the end, the Chiefs offense, as we've seen this year, it will be too much. I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to cover that massive number.
You know, I looked at this game and I thought and considered taking the Falcons in the 10.5. I could see where Brady would do that. But in the end, I just think that the Falcons are ready to go to Cabo or to the Bahamas or something. Their bags are. Well, nowadays you can't go anywhere.
That's why you live in Florida.
That's correct. But their mindset is they're going to the Bahamas or to Cancun or somewhere. They're getting away because they're done. They're toast. They put a lot into beating the Bucs last week. The Chiefs are home for the first time in 3 weeks. I think they're going to show up and play well here. I will lay the 10.5, but I really think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think there's going to be a lot of points here, but I'll lay the 10.5.
Like you said, you thought about it. All right, Bears at Jags. The Bears, by the way, have scored 30 points in each of their past 3 games. That is. All right, welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. We're going through your picks for Week 16. So let's go to your Sunday night game, Titans at Packers. Now, there are a lot of various playoff scenarios in this game. I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically the Titans can clinch a playoff berth if they win. The Packers can lock up that first-round bye if they win, plus a Seattle loss. So the Packers are favored in this game by 3.5. The over-under is 56. Brady, give us your pick.
Oh, man, the kryptonite of the Green Bay Packer defense is a rushing attack, one in which we know Derrick Henry, who really should be a part of the MVP conversation, even though he's a running back, so Pete's going to hate on that. He's had that sort of year, and he's really helped position this team and the Tennessee Titans in a potential spot to win the division, if not at least a wild card spot. So this is going to be what you need to watch in this game. Is Tennessee shortening the game, trying to limit the possessions for who may very well win the MVP, and Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the ball. So keep an eye on the amount of carries and touches Derrick Henry gets. I think he's going to have a big game in this one. And then Ryan Tannehill will do his part as well, complementing that rushing attack. But I'm going to go ahead and take the 3.5 points here. I think it's more because of the hook more than anything else. I do think this is going to be a close football game. Even though Aaron Rodgers will dissect this secondary for the Tennessee Titans, I still think this Green Bay Packers defense is going to have a hard time stopping a guy that really no one's been able to stop this year in Derrick Henry.
A running back will never win MVP ever again. It won't happen. It's a quarterback award. We know that because the quarterbacks are the most valuable. It makes sense. B, he's only got about 200 more yards than Dalvin Cook, so let's make a case for Dalvin Cook to be in the MVP conversation. And C, I agree with Brady. He's going to run wild this week against that Packers defense. The problem is Aaron Rodgers is going to have a 7-on-7 camp going against that Tennessee defense. They are awful against the pass. They can't rush the quarterback. They don't cover very well. He didn't play very well last week. The Packers look flat against Carolina. They will respond in this one. Aaron Rodgers will throw for 375 and 4 in this game, and the Titans won't be able to keep up. A lot of points because I think Henry will run the football, but they won't be able to keep up.
Really quickly, let's talk about Ryan Tannehill. Did not get a Pro Bowl nod. He was upset about it. He said, of course, I'm biased. I thought it should have happened, but I'm not going to waste my time and energy on that. And what's in the past, I'm going to look ahead to the Packers. Do you agree?
Well, he just wasted his time and energy by answering the question. Look, I understand where he's coming from. If I were him, I'd say I should be in the Pro Bowl too, but he shouldn't be. The 3 guys that went in deserve to be in. Mahomes, Allen, and Watson. Those guys deserve to be in ahead of Ryan Tannehill.
I think the hardest thing for Ryan Tannehill in making a case for, being in and over any of those guys, which he shouldn't be in over Mahomes. We can all agree upon that. Josh Allen's had a better year. We can agree upon that. Watson might be the one you want to debate with, but Watson's having a career year, and he's got no help for what he's doing and that team even winning 4 games, he's keeping that team competitive right now. I think people look at the Tennessee Titans and they say Derrick Henry is really the engine that makes that offense go. So as great of a year as Ryan has had, unfortunately, I think it's because he's on a team with a guy that is in the MVP conversation in Derrick Henry. And I don't disagree with what Pete said about running backs never winning this MVP award. I'll never say never in regards to the NFL. Maybe there'll be a day where that may happen. However, it's not going to be this year. Aaron Rodgers has played at such a high level. Mahomes is right up there too. One of those two guys is going to end up winning this award.
Aaron Rodgers on the other side of it. Is he still in that MVP conversation?
He is, but he needs to have a big game on national TV.
What are you in the conversation? He's leading the league in touchdown passes. He's probably going to end up having a career year. Like, what are we talking about? He's neck and neck with Patrick Mahomes.
I agree.
It's those two guys right now.
If you wouldn't have jumped in and interrupted me, I was going to say the exact same thing.
Get to the point, Pete.
I was going to say the exact same thing that he just said. Yes, he's in the conversation. The two of them are neck and neck, and I think the final couple games are going to decide it. He is having a great year. He was down a little bit, wasn't great last week, and so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think the next couple weeks are going to decide who wins it. Yes, he's in the conversation. Before Brady interrupts me again, yes, he's in it, Brady. Yes.
I'm sorry I have to speak for you, Pete.
Well, you interrupted me.
Hey, remind me real quick. Did you have the Packers going to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season?
Yes, I did. Did Brady? No.
I had them losing in the NFC Championship game to New Orleans.
You did have the Steelers going. I do remember that.
I regret that now.
All right.
When they were
it looked good 11 weeks into the season.
Yeah, when they were flying high, you didn't regret it.
No, that's not true. I said at that moment, they're still not the best team. And you're the one that kept putting them number 1 on your power rankings instead of Kansas City.
Well, until you lose, you stay there.
Oh, jeez.
Until the Miami Dolphins pop the champagne because you lost, you stay there at number 1.
Unbelievable.
Let's go on to the next game. Bills at Patriots, your Monday night game. Of course, the Patriots bounced from the postseason for the first time in forever. The Bills eyeing that number 2 spot in the AFC. The Bills are favored here by 7, over under 46. Brady, what's your play?
Yeah, I think this one will probably end up hitting the under, but I do like the Bills. I like them laying the 7 points. We don't know if it's going to be Cam Newton, Jarrett Stidham. Bill Belichick was a little bit cryptic about answering that question in regards to who will be the quarterback this week. But the one thing we know is they have a hard time throwing the football, and that's where I just have a hard time believing with Josh Allen's athleticism, his ability to run and buy time to make bigger plays downfield. Even as good as Bill Belichick can dial up a game plan to slow them down, I still think they're going to have a good amount of success and be able to cover the numbers. So, and unfortunately for the Patriots, it's been, 12 years since they've missed out on the playoffs. This is going to be a downer year for the Patriots, and they're sitting in like that purgatory of what do they do next year at the quarterback spot? A lot of questions heading into the offseason.
Yeah, it's a bad football team right now. When you go to Miami and get handled the way they got handled last week, that just tells you how bad they are. I thought they'd be competitive in that game. They were not. They're talking about the quarterback change like Brady mentioned. I would play Jarrett Stidham, see what you have in the next couple of weeks, at least get some tape on him, let him throw it around. But I think Buffalo is the real deal. Now, this is consecutive road games, tough to do. This one's inside the division. You know they want to beat the Patriots. But how focused are they here? That's the question. They're pretty much in the playoffs now and where they're going to be. So I would say, yes, they will win the game and cover the number, but I'm a little concerned about the focus in this one.
Past this game, what is your postseason outlook for the Bills?
They're the second best team in the AFC. And they are a threat to the Chiefs. And anybody who doesn't think they're a threat to the Chiefs is misguided because they can go and score. Josh Allen is the real deal. He looks so much more comfortable now running that offense. You can see it in his eyes. He's a better quarterback, a significantly better quarterback, and they're a dangerous football team come playoff time.
Brady?
He's a better quarterback now because they got him Stephon Diggs. To me, he's always been the same sort of player, but a third year in the system and now a legitimate number 1 wide receiver who's already over 1,300 yards this season. That's the improvement, is he's able to play more confident because he's got a guy that he can throw the football to, and he doesn't have to worry about the drops or the repercussions of throwing up a 50-50 ball and if Stephon Diggs will come down with it. So the Stephon Diggs acquisition cannot be underrated for how much I think it's helped Josh Allen, at least in the eyes of everyone on the outside who has been fans of him, now jump on the bandwagon. But Pete talked about something. They are the second best team in the AFC right now. They can score points. The problem is that defense. That could end up being their Achilles heel this year if they can't stop the Chiefs. It's that their defense can't get enough stops throughout the course of a game versus the Chiefs. So that's the side of the ball I'm more curious to see how they play once the playoffs come.
Yeah, I agree with Brady. Their defense would be the problem, but their defense is more of a problem against the run, and that's not who the Chiefs are. So if you get involved in a shootout, you got to be able to knock Patrick Mahomes down. They have capable pass rushers. They're not a great pass rushing team. They're good enough, I think, from that standpoint. I think the team that'll give them a problem is if they play the Titans again and Derrick Henry can pound the football against them and they control the flow of the game. That will hurt them. But I think they can match up with the Chiefs because they can both go up and down the field.
It'll be fun to watch. All right, Brady, Pete, thanks so much. Let's recap their picks. Their last 2 picks, the final 2 games, they're on opposite sides when it comes to the Titans and Packers. Of course, Pete, Team Packers there. But they both agree. Take the Bills. All right, that does it for this hour of CBS Sports HQ. Amanda Garrett, Pete Prisco, Brady Quinn. It is always entertaining. Thank you guys for joining me. Have a good day.
Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.